Hello, my name is Dr. Tamara Strubing, and I'm a clinical pharmacist with Froedtert in the Medical College. And today we're going to walk through how to read a food label. Whether you're managing a health condition or just trying to make healthier choices, understanding a food label can be a very powerful tool. So why should we even look at these? And these labels are designed to help you understand exactly what you're putting into your body. You can use them to compare products and choose foods that align better with your healthcare goals, as well as manage conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and weight loss. Let's start at the top of the label with serving size. This tells you how much volume of food is going to be contained in this particular item that represents all of the different macronutrients that we're going to review in a minute. Be careful, even what may seem like a single serving bag may contain 2 or more servings. I would encourage you to measure it out once using a common measuring cup to have a visual clue, as my idea of what a serving size versus what is recommended is usually not the same. The second thing I look at is calories. Calories are a unit of energy, and not all calories are created equal. And what I mean by that, the quality of the calorie matters. For example, you can have 200 calories of broccoli, which are going to have a lot more nutrients than, say, 200 calories from a regular soda. The overall healthiness is not the same, and you want to focus more on nutrient density. So how healthy a food overall is for you versus just the calories. But in this example, calories are the unit of energy, and too many can lead to weight gain, which can increase your risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and other conditions. You also want to understand what your daily calorie needs are to help prevent overconsumption. You may check with your primary care provider for some guidance on this. The next thing I look at are carbohydrates, which is in the middle of the label. Carbohydrates impact your blood sugar, and especially for people with diabetes. You want to try to focus on foods that are richer in fiber, as fiber helps improve digestion, lowers cholesterol, and supports blood sugar control overall. And this is based on tolerability. Some people can have a higher fiber diet than others, so again, check with your primary care provider. So when we look at carbohydrates, there's several different lines here. There's total carbohydrates, there's dietary fiber, total sugars, and added sugars. The first thing I look at is added sugars. And these are things that are added to the processing of the food and not found naturally in the item itself. Most groups, such as the American Diabetes Association or the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, recommend limiting added sugars. The American Heart Association recommends less than 25 grams per day for women and children and less than 36 grams a day for men. An optimal value would be between 10 and 20 grams of sugar a day, added sugar a day. The next part of the carbohydrate section that I look at is fiber. So to tell if a food item is higher in fiber, I look at the total carbohydrates and the dietary fiber. If you would divide these, so divide the carbohydrates divided by the fiber, if it's less than 5, that is considered a higher fiber item. And remember, not everybody can eat the same amount of fiber as others, depending on what their gut health looks like. And fiber is a nutrient that is not really digested by our bodies, but it is important to feed and support your gut bacteria. The FDA recommends 28 grams of fiber per day based on a 2,000 calorie diet. The USDA dietary guidelines for Americans suggest based on a person's sex and age. So women ages 19 to 50 aim at minimum of 25 to 28 grams a day. Women over 50, about 22 grams or higher. Men 19 to 50, 31 to 34 grams a day, and men over 50, about 28 as a minimum. You can always eat more as you're able to tolerate this. The third thing I look at is sodium. Sodium is something that can directly affect your blood pressure and fluid retention. Often processed and packaged foods have high sodium content, so it's important to check the label, especially if you have heart or kidney disease. To check if a food is high in sodium or salt, you want to look at the milligrams of sodium. So in this example, it's 160 milligrams. I usually compare this number to the calorie number, which is 230. If the sodium number is higher than the calorie number, then it's usually considered a high sodium food. The fourth thing I look at is protein. Everyone has different protein requirements, so again, check with your primary care provider on what your individual needs may be. But protein is important for strengthening muscles, maintaining steady energy, and continued weight loss. Protein is found at the end of the nutrition facts. So often you want to try to get more as you can. Lastly, saturated fat. Now, not all fat is bad, but saturated and trans fats can raise LDL or bad cholesterol, which increases your risk of heart disease. So instead, you want to try to choose unsaturated fats for heart-healthy items and help reducing inflammation. Saturated fats are usually solids at room temperature. So a kind of a good recommendation is less than 10 to 13 grams per day for most people. In this situation, there is 1 gram of saturated fat. Lastly, don't skip the ingredient list. This is where you find the real story of what's in this particular item, and labels can be very tricky. If you look on the front of the box, there could be heart healthy or light, which doesn't always mean healthy. So you want to be aware of sneaky ingredients like hidden sugars, or if on the nutrition label it has a small serving size, so it's designed to make it look better. Also, if sugar is listed in the first 3 ingredients, consider that a dessert. One thing when looking at food labels, if there's a lot of words you cannot pronounce or even recognize, chances are it is a highly processed food and not as healthy of a choice. The fewer and more recognizable ingredients, the better. Let's go over a couple quick tips just to review. You always want to start with the serving size. You want to scan the calories. You want to aim for more fiber, more nutrients, as well as limiting added sugars, sodium, and saturated fat. So let's practice. I have 2 examples here of some common granola bars that I have had, both of them, and I do enjoy. But let's try to see which one may be a better choice based on the nutrition facts and ingredients, as well as do I even like this product? Because if I don't like it, then I'm not even going to bother. So we're going to start with the Cliff Blueberry Almond Crisp Bar. So first thing we're going to do is look at the serving size. And the serving size in this situation is 1 bar. Remember, the first thing I look at is added sugars. This particular item has 15 grams of added sugar. Remember, I want to try to keep it 10 to 20 grams per day. So this particular one item would eliminate my added sugars for the day. So I have to decide, is it worth it? Up to you. The next thing we want to look at is the total carbohydrate and the fiber lines. So remember, we want a ratio of total carbohydrates to fiber of less than 5, and that less than 5 means it's a higher fiber food. In this example, 43 divided by 5 is about 9. So I would not say it's the highest fiber food that we can find. Next, protein. Remember, we want to usually try for more protein. This one has 11 grams, not too bad. Sodium. We want to limit sodium, and if the sodium number is less than the calorie number, it's considered a it's not considered a high sodium food. So this one is 180 compared to 250, so it's not a high sodium food. And lastly, saturated fat, 0.5 grams. Remember, our goal is 10 to 13 grams a day, so this is a low saturated fat item. So let's compare it to its buddy in a second, but let's further look at the ingredient list. Remember, we want to try to be able to recognize and pronounce the names in here. Usually what I'm looking for are sources of sugar. And remember what I said earlier, if a sugar is in the first 3 ingredients, it is dessert. So I have highlighted where all the sugars come in. We have organic brown rice syrup, tapioca syrup, cane syrup, and apple juice concentrate. This first sugar is the second ingredient, so I would consider this a dessert. All right, let's look at its buddy, dark chocolate, nut, and sea salt from Kind. Again, let's look at the nutrition facts. Serving size, 1 bar. Added sugars, 4 grams, definitely less than the last one. Remember, our goal is 10 to 20. So this may be a better choice compared to the higher added sugar example previously. We want to look at total carbohydrates divided by dietary fiber. This one has a higher fiber into it, which 16 divided by 7 is about 2. The last one, remember, was about 9. So this is still winning from an added sugar and a carb to fiber ratio. Protein, not as much as the last one. The last one had 11 grams. This one has 6. Sodium, the sodium number is 140, which is less than the total calorie number, 190. So this is not a high salt food. And then lastly, saturated fat, which is 3 grams, significantly more than the last one. So it made me think, where is this fat coming from? Remember, fat is a solid at room temperature, and if we look at the ingredients, it might help us tease out a little bit of where this saturated fat's coming from. So if we look at the ingredients, almonds and peanuts are the first 2 ingredients, so they make up the most of this item. And nuts in general do have a lot of saturated fat in them, but they're a natural addition to your diet, so maybe not as bad for you. Again, we want to look at where the sugars come in. So we've got honey, cane sugar, and glucose syrup. Honey in this ingredient list is number 4, so it's definitely still up towards the top, but not as high on the ingredient list in our last item. So just to thank you for listening. Here are some resources that you could look up. The FDA Guides to Food Labels at nutrition.gov, or myplate.gov is another example to get more information. And if you want to dig deeper, always please ask your healthcare provider for more information, or ask to have a visit with a dietitian. Thank you very much for your attention today, and I hope to see you in the future.